I'm always shopping. I'm always learning. I'm always reading about every market. I'm not just Miami. What's Miami doing? It's everywhere. Fort Myers, Tampa, Montgomery, Alabama. I mean, everywhere. I'm always shopping. Wherever there's an opportunity, I'm there.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today's guest is the definition of hustle, vision, and execution in South Florida real estate. She's not only a top producing agent in Miami, but also a savvy investor, flipper, and portfolio builder who turned a teenage curiosity into a thriving real estate empire. From riding her bike around the neighborhood at 14, wondering who owned the homes, to handling closings at a title company in high school, to wholesaling deals before she even knew what that was. This woman's story is relentless. She bought, flipped, and rented countless properties, building true financial freedom alongside her husband, all while helping others build wealth through real estate. For her, it's never just been about money. It's been about time, freedom, family, and legacy. Let's dig into this incredible story of Gelkys Delgado. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to have to hire you for my spokesman with that intro.
Well, I started doing it a couple years ago, but didn't like. I stepped away from it, and then recently I was like, I wonder what ChatGPT was if I fed it your bio and said, "Give me an intro." That's ChatGPT right there.
Like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Makes me sound eloquent. So appreciate you coming up.
Thank you.
Like I said, I really do. We were talking pre-show. I really do enjoy being face to face. I mean, I've done Zoom podcast before. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I do them when I need to, but I appreciate you coming up. But expanding your business, you came up to Jacksonville to tell us about investors and so forth that you're helping out.
Yeah, for sure. I came up here, obviously I wanted to do the show with you, but also I came to see some investors. I'm always working with them and they're always asking for my advice and to see if this is a good opportunity for them. So I came to see some of the opportunities that they were presented with and just give them a little advice and help them out. And I got to see some friends. So it was a nice little getaway.
Yeah. For sure. I'm really curious in digging in for the agents who are listening. You've gone beyond just your residential real estate. You are actually involved. I think if I saw your Instagram, I don't know if that was recent, you just bought a triplex over in Fort Myers.
I went under contract.
Went under contract there.
Yes, not yet.
How are you consistently searching out these opportunities, or are people calling you knowing that you're interested in?
Well, at this point, luckily for me, it's been like 13 years that I've been in the business. So I've created a pretty well-known little network. So people do call me with opportunities all the time, thankfully. But how do I get there? I'm always shopping. I'm always learning. I'm always reading about every market. I'm not just Miami. What's Miami doing? It's everywhere. Fort Myers, Tampa, Montgomery, Alabama. I mean, everywhere. I'm always shopping. Wherever there's an opportunity, I'm there.
You're a native South Floridian.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes,
So born and raised there. Yeah.
Yes.
What area did you grow up in?
I'm from Hialeah. It's a little small town in Miami. Yeah. Awesome town. But I grew up right on the border of Hialeah and Miami Springs. So I went to all the schools in Miami Springs and I grew up in Miami Springs and that's where I live now.
My mother-in-law's side of the families all grew up in Hialeah.
In Hialeah?
Her and all her brother, they talk about legacy growing up in a 2-bedroom house. My mother-in-law and her 3 brothers basically living in the same room.
Oh, yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
My wife was actually born in Miami, but then they moved to Jacksonville shortly thereafter. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about down there. Tell us and I didn't even pick it up because I just uploaded your bio to ChatGPT to pick out that 14-year-old thing. Tell us about what your thought process was there. And as you start, becoming a teenager, and like you said, you were working at the title company, what really just started to interest you in real estate?
Honestly, it's hard for me to explain. It's just a curiosity that I've always had within me. Like you said in my bio, I was 14, 15 riding bike and it's an odd thing to think for a teenager to be thinking about, but I was doing that. I was riding around and like, I wonder if they own, sitting in the porch. I'm like, I wonder if they own that home, and how can I find out? And you know, odd things like that. And then I remember my back neighbor, my mom's back neighbor, they sold their house, and it was a huge lot. It was like double lots. And I remember envisioning like, oh my God, we could knock that house down and we could build like 2 big apartments there, and having all this vision and telling my parents, let's buy the lot. And they were like, they had no vision like that, you know.
Right.
They were like, what are you talking about? We have no money. I'm like, okay. So it was just always inside of me. It was always a big curiosity of mine. And then I started learning like all these wealthy people were creating wealth with real estate. So then that started, you know, piquing my interest even more. And I started learning more and reading more. And
well, Miami has such it's like New York City, you know, it's a melting pot of and you have so much foreign investment, let alone some of the richest people in the world has something there.
Right.
And then you have the common layperson, you know, you have the 2 ends of the extreme and everybody in between.
Right.
And Miami's it's a old young city.
Yes,
right?
it is.
You know what I mean?
It is.
You got some areas that I'm sure that you see a lot of opportunities for some flipping and so forth.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Still in Miami. You would think at this point that it would already be saturated. There's still little interesting little neighborhoods in Miami that are still full of potential to fix and flip. I haven't been doing much flipping in Miami anymore, but that was the bulk of my business, you know, maybe 7 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine it gets competitive, and then there's companies out there's companies here, and that's all they do. They're out there constantly searching for that next flipping opportunity that's you know, going to have some return on investment.
Right.
Have you noticed, whether in Miami or just in general in the areas you're looking in, with the way interest rates are working right now, there is still a housing, especially, you know, here in North Florida, there's still a housing demand. I think there's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines just like waiting for these interest rates to drop.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman last week that, you know, we got pre-approved. He's like, well, I'm going to wait till the interest rates get like 5.5%. I'm like, hold on, dude. If it gets that low, we're going to have a refinance boom. I can tell you that. 2, the price of the house will probably go up 20, 30,000, if not more.
Absolutely. And that's what I try to explain to everyone, that every time I hear that little comment, I'm going to wait till the interest rates go down. I have to remind people, okay, let's marry the house.
Yeah.
No, what is it? Marry the house.
Date the rate. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, because when the rates go down, the prices are going to go up. The demand is going to be there, and it's going to cause competition.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know people got all upset about that phrase when it came out. I don't know, whatever, a year or 2 ago. You know, well, it was May of 22 when the rates started to go up. So I think that's about when that phrase came out. But it is so true. I mean, with the housing demand, it is. And the other phrase is, when's the best time to buy a house? Well, 2 years ago, right? So you got to get in the game. You got to get in the game and get in the line. The rates will drop. You refinance. That's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. That's just part of it.
All right. So what were you doing at the title company as a teenager? And then take that to now you're 18, 19, 20. You're starting with your adult. Where do you go and how you enter into real estate?
So I got into the title company because my mom she worked for like 25 plus years as a manager in a doctor's office. So this was one of her clients, was a real estate attorney, not a client, sorry, a patient from the office. And he told her, I need someone to answer the phone for my office. And she obviously like, oh, my daughter, let's just put her in. She's, 16, she's dying to work. Let's put her in. So I got that job, and it was incredible because I was already interested in real estate. So then I started learning more about it, and I started seeing the money that can be made. I mean, I was part of closings of like millions of dollars. I would see investors making thousands and thousands of dollars.
The real estate agent checks going out.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is it. This is it for me. So I started doing that. I started learning a lot more in that aspect. And then I found myself looking for people in distress situations. So like I learned how to look up people that were like with list pendants and foreclosures. So I started just going to their house and knocking on their door.
Really?
And I was, 18, 19 years old. I had no money. Now
this is what time period are we talking about? Because you're post 2008.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, this was post 2008. This was 2003. 2003, 2004.
Oh, wait. Well, not post. It says pre-2008.
I'm sorry, pre. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Pre. I was 2003.
I was taking a
2004.
decade off of you. You should have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I should have kept it going. So yeah, I started knocking on their doors and telling them, listen, I know that you're in a hard situation and I want to see if I can help. I'm a kid knocking on their door, telling them that I could help them. So obviously most of the time they told me to leave and what are you doing? And then I remember the first one that said yes, it was a little old lady. And she told me, yes, I do. I need help. I need, how can you help me? So I was stuck. I'm like, how do I help?
She was in a pre-foreclosure situation?
Right,
okay.
Right. So then I remember thinking like, okay, how do I get this? Like, this is a really good opportunity. I could get this house, but I have no money. I don't know what to do from here. So I had met many investors in the title company. So then I thought, well, I could give it to this guy and I could just ask him. I mean, I made $500. Now I look back and I'm like, wow, that guy ripped me off. But I sold it to him. I gave him that lead for $500. And I started doing that, throughout the months and the years. 500 then turned to 1,000. And then I started making a little bit more. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was wholesaling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was kind of trolling through your Instagram, and you do a little video talking about wholesaling.
Right.
And it's you kind of like more or less fell into it.
Right.
You didn't even really know what you were doing, but I think a lot of people say, "Oh, wholesaling." But give us kind of like a 30-second, like, what is wholesaling? What are you actually doing in that process, and how are you making your money in the wholesaling?
So basically, as a wholesaler, what I was doing is figuring out a solution for them. That I was.
Well, when you were finding. You're finding the deal, right? I mean,
finding the deal was pretty easy. At that point, it was just looking for people that needed help. Like, okay, these people are about to get into foreclosure. They're in a desperate situation. This is the time to try to see if I could get in there. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would do. But basically, as a wholesaler, I just see it as you're just the problem solver. So you're the one getting everything together. So I'm going to solve your problem. You have this problem. I'm going to look for someone that's going to get you out of this situation. And that person's going to benefit because they're going to make money. And in the end, we're all going to win. So I think as a wholesaler, it's just someone that gets everything together and takes care of a problem. That's how I see it.
You search out the problem, find it, and I think the average person we think, well, yeah, they might be behind in payments, but they still want to live in the house.
Right.
Imagine
that happens all the time. Yeah, I get that all the time.
They really, maybe they have equity, but maybe they don't.
They don't. Yeah, but that's what I love. I love getting like creative and seeing like a certain scenario and being like, how can I solve this for them? Like it could be something out there and I'll be like, okay, well, there's creative financing and there's this guy that I know that is willing to do this. And it's just putting things together, creating teams and a network that I know that I could go to this person for this, go to this person for that. And like I said, it's just like a whole problem solving thing for me.
Right. Obviously, I think people do it for clickbait on social media to get people to click on Florida housing market. You're bouncing around. You're seeing you just bought a place. You're under contract in Fort Myers. You're up here. You're down in South Florida. The whole thing. Florida's housing's going to have a bubble burst. How do you address that?
I don't agree with that at all. Yeah. I mean, Florida is just such a great place to be at, and so many people want to be here. The weather, the people, everything. It's just an incredible place to be, and I don't foresee it happening. Every time I have investors asking me, like, what do you think about investing in Florida? And the only thing that sucks about it is that usually the numbers might not make sense for them because of the insurance and because of the taxes as an investment, but the appreciation, I always count on it for Florida for sure.
Well, there seems to be, I had an agent I'm working with a deal right now, and he was talking about he's going on a bunch of listing appointments, and I was talking because our listings are growing. He says there's people wanting to move out, but where they wanted to move, Tennessee, that's a hot area. They'd have no income tax as well. The other place I guess he mentioned was South Carolina. Okay. I know you've been doing some stuff in Alabama, which are low expense areas, but the reality is, are the jobs there? is it a desirable place to live?
Correct.
There may be moving out of here saying, "Oh, this isn't, Northeast Florida is not what it's cracked up to be." I'm sure people down in Miami, they should just have the same, people are people. And they're saying, but when there is lower cost, but there's a reason why it's a lower cost area.
Absolutely.
What hotel you want to stay at? Well, I mean, what do you want?
Exactly.
Right?
Where are you going to go eat at 8:00 at night? Maybe there's nowhere to eat at that time, or
McDonald's is always open.
That's true.
And that's not even cheap anymore.
Yeah. So absolutely, I'm with you. I think Florida, I don't believe that it's going to be, I'm sure there's going to be market shifts, but I feel very confident about Florida.
Yeah. I think the builders, at least here in Northeast Florida, my opinion is the builders have actually pumped up the values of the homes, so your price points are a little high. And the fact that they are doing so much, and a lot of that rate buy down, a lot of their rate incentives are built into the cost of the home. And that is kind of gave us a little bit of a bubble, which, could, I don't want to say burst, but could cause real values. You might see a settlement of $15,000, $20,000 on, $600,000-$700,000
a bubble bust. That's why I feel like, market shift, yes.
Yeah.
But not like any kind of burst.
Yeah. Well, because everyone's had such great equity growth in the last 5 years. So a drop in $20,000 in the price because things are starting to settle where they should be.
Yeah. But something that needs to be addressed for sure, in at least South Florida, I don't know if it's like this in Jacksonville, I don't think so, but is the insurance. It's just, I'm paying like almost $7,000 in insurance.
Yeah.
And that's absurd.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that and the property taxes, that hurts, flood insurance, so all those things, that hurts.
I think as a nation, we're getting caught up, but things are being brought up to us, because insurance has a tremendous amount of fraud. And the way things were set up, and hopefully Tallahassee is going to get, some of those things straightened out to ease off on the insurance. All right. So you go to Kaiser University. Yeah. Which I've been there because I've, for almost 10 years, probably 2010 to 2020 roughly, officiated NAIA football. And when they started their football program, I was going down there. So I know where that is.
Okay.
It's very hot there on a noonday in September.
It is very much, yes.
Especially on AstroTurf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that just a kind of a stepping stone for you? Or what was your degree? Did you go there with the intent of, hey, I'm still involved in real estate?
Oh, no, at all. I went to college because I thought that was just the next step I had to do. So my brother and I, first generation Americans, so we were always like, my parents were like, you have to go to college, because they thought that was just the right thing to do.
Right.
So I started college because of that, but I'm not a good student. I'm not a good student at all. And it's hard for me to sit down and learn that way. I need to learn in other ways. So I struggled a lot. I went for my finance degree. I started in psychology, and then I ended up in financing because I love numbers. But the whole thing for real estate was just peeking at me the whole entire time. I was doing the title company, and then I left there. And then I started working for like corporate in the Department of Education. I started working for like universities in the finance departments. So I got into that whole corporate world, and it was just so hard. It was so hard because
it didn't interest you.
It didn't interest me. And then that whole working yourself up the ladder that way. And it's like, it was just so difficult for me.
Yeah.
So it was challenging, but I'm happy I got out of there and I got into the whole real estate thing. But yeah, I tried it out and it just wasn't for me.
So what brings you back to dive into, and do you go in full time as an agent? Is that your next step?
So I did the whole corporate thing, and then I meet my husband. Right. So, before that, I bought my first property when I was 23 years old, and I started renting it out. The first year I lived in it, and when I was living in it, I was struggling to make the payments. Like I was like broke, I was like making my payment, and I was like, oh my God, I have no money for food, and it was like super hard. Then I was like, you know what? I got an opportunity for New York to go work at a different school in New York. So I went over there. I had to rent out my place, and when I was renting it out, I was actually making like $500 or $600 a month. So I was like, oh man, this is good.
That's good investment property.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so you know what? I'm not gonna go back to living in it. I'm gonna keep renting it out. I came back to Miami because New York was just too cold for me. I came back to Miami, and then I got my best friend to be my roommate. So we started sharing expenses while I had this property rented out. And then I started saving money so that I could buy the next property. So in the whole interim of that, I meet my husband, and one of the things that got us like super in sync was the love for real estate, the love for the hustle, the art of the sale. Like he's also like me. So he had done a couple flips himself before. And I started telling him, look, I've always been very interested in just doing like, it was honestly for me as an investor, not to be an agent. So he was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Like quit your job and let's just go full in. And
what was he doing?
He was a business owner at the time. We had a pharmacy for it. He had it by the time I met him, like 5 years in. But we just sold it maybe 4 years ago. But it was a very nice business, but it was a challenging business. It was a pharmacy close to the public, so we only did hospice patients. So he was handling the business. I left my job, super scary. We weren't even married yet. I left my job. I got my license only so that I could save money on commission. So we did that. I had my apartment. I took out money on it. He had 2 houses that he was like, you know what, I'm going to flip them. And then with that little bit of money, we started flipping and we started flipping and flipping and flipping. And we turned something small into something huge,
right.
You know? And then I got into it. Once I was doing my own investments, then I started meeting other investors that were like, hey, you've been doing this already for a long time. Can you help me? So I started helping them. And then I would get like, friends like, hey, I need to buy a house and this. And then I started helping other clients. And then I was like, wow, I really like this. I really like helping other people either find investments or find their homes. And then I just went into it. It was honestly by accident, but I love it.
So a lot of people dream of flipping.
Yeah.
There's a lot involved. You need to know what you're doing.
Yes.
In importance, you're helping people out. I imagine you've stepped in probably some money pits.
Oh yeah.
Along the line. I mean, and it's a lot of trial and error. Now you obviously, hopefully, a lot less money pits.
Yes.
And money pits meaning you went and investigated the house and didn't realize there's this problem. You just didn't find it before you bought it. Yeah. That how important it is for the people here to find someone like you as a mentor to go in on a couple of stuff. Maybe you don't make all the money, you split the money or whatever. Maybe you can share what you do when you're mentoring someone on helping them do that. But if you want to flip, to find someone who's been doing it. Absolutely. And learns, and it'll keep you in it versus breaking you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I made that mistake when I got in because I had my husband who had his experience of flipping a couple houses. So I thought that was good enough, but it wasn't. Because he's done a couple of flips himself doesn't make him an expert in any way.
Right.
And there's a lot of other things that go into it, right? So a lot of people romanticize flipping and they're like, oh, it's this, but it's hard. It's hard work and you really have to know what you're doing. So I made the mistake of going in without a mentor and I learned a lot of hard lessons. So I would highly recommend people to get themselves a mentor or to partner up with someone that's been doing it for a while and do their couple deals, maybe the first 5 with them and get their feet wet. But yeah, I think it's very important. You need to be very knowledgeable in the market. If you're not a real estate agent or a seasoned investor, you're not going to be knowledgeable in that way in the market. Right. You have to know that. You have to be very knowledgeable in construction, and believe it or not, it's a hard thing for you to learn because I'm not a construction worker,
right.
But you have to learn a lot of things and the whole resale of it. You have to see, is there going to be a market for me to be able to resell this and in how much time, and time is money, and putting all of these things together is very important, and it's so easy to lose money on a flip.
Yeah.
Very easy.
Well, I think people lose track of, like you said, the time. Yes. So we can go in there and we could do it ourselves. Okay. Well, how many more months is it going to take you to do that? And you're paying the taxes. And then if you're borrowing money, you're paying the interest on that, and so forth, and getting back, and it's eating into your ROI, right?
Right.
In calculating that versus, I would imagine you guys found some contractors,
right,
which we know in Florida, to find a contractor you can trust and shows up and does halfway decent work is not easy to do.
Very, very much. Well, I got lucky in that sense because my stepdad was my contractor.
Okay.
So it was very easy because I wasn't being taken advantage of, right? But still, it was challenging to work with family. So it was very challenging when I wanted something.
Why are you taking today off? Why aren't you?
Why aren't you here already? What's going on?
Yeah.
So it was challenging, but it worked out. The most important part is that, I think, not getting ripped off by a contractor. Like I said, I haven't had that experience, thankfully, but I've had a lot of investors get really screwed over with that, you know? Like, if you're not on top of it, and by on top of it, I mean, you need to be there every day. I would show up to my flips every single day. What are you doing? What's not happening? And this was family. So, you know, and even like that, they would slack. You have to be on top of them.
Yeah.
Because like I said, time is money when there's a flip.
Yeah. There's, again, being with a mentor who's been doing it, may already have these contacts. That's probably one of the most valuable things you can get from a mentor, let alone just talking some of the horror stories.
Right.
Share with us, I imagine, you know, one of these, I call them money pits, but one of these ones where maybe you didn't know something was wrong with it, and then you found out, and it was obviously a huge expense that might have ate into your, or might have made it cause it to be a loss for you.
Yeah. Thankfully, I haven't had a loss in a flip, thank God. But I've come to really close to breaking even. This one particular one that I remember that it was a nightmare was something that I bought sight unseen. And I was pretty comfortable with doing that because of the location of the property. And I was like, okay, for sure, I got this. It's going to be good. So when we
was this in the greater Miami area?
This was in Virginia Gardens, which is a little small town adjacent to Miami Springs. Okay. And when I went in there, like it was on a crawl space, so it was like lifted, the house. The whole floor needed to be done, like the foundation, not the foundation, the joints. Yeah. The joints. All of that needed to be done. So that was like a big headache. And then when we went to check out the roof, the whole attic was just full of molds. I needed to, it was just a lot of money. That one, we made very little profit in it, but that was like a really hard 6 months of my life just to not make that much. But that was a big learning curve for me. I couldn't really do much about it because it was a sight unseen, and I was like, okay, the deal looks good. But it was 6 months of not, of hard work and not a lot of payoff in the end.
That was pretty much almost like a full gut.
Oh, yeah.
When you start getting into molds,
It was because when, it was a floor and then the mold and the roof and then the remodel, and it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, you learned.
Yes.
You learned from that. Yeah. You probably have never bought one sight unseen again.
I have.
You have what?
I'm wild like that. Yes, I have.
Well, have you ever bought one off like the court, like literally off the courthouse steps?
Yeah.
Tell us how does that process work?
So this was back then. Now it's all online. But back then, I remember going physically, and it was during you would go into you had to go in physically and do your bids, and people were just bidding on each other. And then what would happen is these, the same people would be there every week. So then they started getting to know each other. And then eventually I started realizing, okay, these three guys keep getting the houses. So what's happening is that they would just go in on each other. Like, okay, look, I'm going to get this one. This is how much. They would talk about it.
I'll take this one. You take that one. So they weren't bidding against each other.
So then I was like, okay, I need to get in there. So I got in there. And then we made it work. That's how it was back then. Now it's online. I haven't done any online, but that's how it was back then when we did it. And
so you figured out how to join the good old boy network.
I had to get in there. I was like, why am I being left out here? And then, I got in there and it worked out.
Because some of those houses, you can't even get in them, right?
You can't even get in them. I remember this one house, the only one that I bought in an auction online it was even scarier because it was in Georgia. It was in Augusta, Georgia, and I bought it for $18,000. Like, how do you not? And I was super pregnant. I was 2 days before giving birth, and I was in the computer and I was like shopping, and I'm like, 18,000. I'm gonna start bidding. I think I started off at 11, and I ended up getting it at 18. I never saw the property. I closed on it. I won the bid. I came out of the room and I told my husband,
you have so many
house in Augusta. I was like, yeah, we gotta, after we give birth, we gotta go check it out.
And then you have so many days to wire them the money. Is that how that works?
Yeah. Well, it's usually you have some money on you have to deposit money to make the bids. And then once you make the bid and you win the bid, you wire the money and it's yours.
What investigation did you look at that you knew that $18,000 wasn't only going to get you $30,000? Did you do some pre-investigation to see what was going on?
For sure. Like I said, I'm in there, and I am like.
What made you feel good that $18,000? What do you remember?
I'm trying to remember back then. This was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember just shopping. One of my really good friends had just moved to Augusta, and that was one of the main reasons that I had shopped in that area, because I had someone that could go out there and like, hey, can you go help me out and open this door or whatnot, Yeah. So I started shopping because of that in that area. And the $18,000, I think the fact that it was a house for $18,000 and it was a brick home, it was on a slab.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer for me. And I won the bid. I mean, I don't remember exactly the research I did. I'm sure I did a lot of it, but the fact that it was $18,000, that's what had me in there.
Well, I mean, obviously, a quick calculation. You got a brick home on a slab.
Yes, 3-bedroom. I remember that. I don't know how many baths.
Yeah, so you're structurally, you're not looking at something that's going out there and the termites because you could gut the house inside for $18,000. But the resale, I mean, it must have been at least $80,000 to $100,000, I would imagine.
It was, and I actually kept it for about a year and a half, renting it out, because that was the reason I did it. So it always starts initially because I want to collect cash flow and I want to rent it out, and then a good opportunity arises and I sell it, or whatnot. But this one, I remember having it for about a year and a half, and then we sold it, and it was somewhere in the 70s or 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
When going in, I think the other challenge, like you get this contractor, or have you gotten savvy, you and your husband gotten savvy enough to be able to walk into some of these possible flips, or even, like you said, you flip and hold, you fix and hold, be able to go in and do your own poking around, do your own inspection, basically, and calculate roughly. Now you've done it enough times to calculate, hey, this is what it's going to cost. This is what we need to budget to get it up to speed.
At this point, we're there.
Yeah.
At this point, we're there. We've never been one to do an actual real inspection. And another thing is that most of our deals are cash. So it's not like we need a 4.0 when, we go in there with a contractor or with ourselves, and we're like, okay, we're going to spend this much money in here, more or less. And that's how we calculate to see if there would be a good return or not, or a good investment. But yeah, we've gotten to that point, definitely.
How long did it take you to get to that point? For those someone's listening to this right now, I go, I want to do some flips, but again, finding that contractor you trust, it's not always easy. Maybe you do have a friend or father-in-law who can walk in and walk around and then give you a number. Right. How do you get that? What's the kind of graduation? What did you see yourself at some point?
Experience. I had to go in there and see what does it usually cost to put down a floor. Like, what does it cost per square foot to do a bathroom? You start learning all these things. And then once you go in there, you're like, okay, I know what tiles cost. I know what sheetrock cost. I know what a roof will cost me, and then you just put it together.
Yeah. When you're looking to flip and hold, or fix and hold, I should say, I think some people can put their personal interest into it, of the quality of your materials, right? How are you going to put the vinyl down? Are you putting obviously all the different flooring options we have today? What is kind of your ideology on thinking that, because this is not a home you're ever going to live in?
Correct.
You have a plan. You're going to hold it for whatever, 2 years, whatever, and sell it. But obviously, you don't want to hopefully not have to replace the flooring again in 2 years. Right. You want it to last through a renter or two, and then you're going to sell it.
Correct.
What is your ideology? What's your thought process when you go through and you're picking out bathroom fixtures and things like that?
So at first, I have to give credit to my husband for this, because at first, when I first started investing, I was that girl, which I think it's pretty typical, that I will go in there and be like, oh, okay, we're going to go into floor and decor, and I want to make this bathroom this one and this. And and my husband's like, hello, reality check. This is not for you. This is, let's make this as cheap as best as possible. So he helped me with that. But now that I have that perspective on it, it's totally shifted for me. I mean, I could care less. To me, I don't even
But
care.
you want it to be desirable to someone who wants to buy it.
Well, correct. When we're talking about a fix and flip, it's totally different. When I'm talking about a fix and flip in a nice area, I really care a lot. I care. But what I'm doing right now, which is Montgomery and which is Section 8, renting it to Section 8 people and whatnot, I don't care. I want it to be livable. I want it to be pretty, like in the sense of like, okay, this matches. Like, I don't want to put 5 different floors or.
Right.
But whatever is the most economical and the best thing that I can find. That's my ideology on it now. What's the most affordable?
Because that is another challenge that a flipper will have.
Oh, for
and
sure.
And it generally, I don't want to accuse the females of it, but that's what you want it to, you were visualizing yourself living in a lot of times.
You go in there and you're like, oh my God, what would I love? And you can't go in there like that, because the person that's going to buy that property is going to do their own touches to it, and they're going to do their own things to it. So you got to make it more like neutral colors and neutral things, and that way they could just put their own touches on it. It could be more, desirable for them.
Well, that just made me think of, and I pulled up this clip, which I think is still real today because it wasn't even a year ago when I had this agent on. But in the Miami market right now, as far as retail sales, most of the buyers here in Northeast Florida they don't really want to they want a turnkey house. Are you seeing that in Miami?
As investors?
No, not investors, just your typical residential buy a primary residence. They're not really, this agent made a great statement, which I think has a lot of weight to it in what she saw, is the generations today buying their first house and so forth, they don't have this like, hey, I want to invest in this house and then, we're going to do some things and we're going to, upgrade it over time in 3 or 4 or 5 years. We're going to sell it so we can move to our next. They don't think like that anymore. Right. They really want that turnkey. That's why new construction is so hot because it's new, everything's new, and it's, you got warranties and everything. It's turnkey.
Right.
Are you seeing that kind of same thing in Miami that we're seeing here as far as people when they're looking at the homes, existing homes, they really want them turnkey. They really want the seller to have, everything looking nice and so forth.
I guess, maybe because of the fact that I work with so many investors, those are the kind of clients I get. Even when my first-time home buyers, I just closed on a property that it's a really young couple and they need to do a lot of work to it. And I love their vision because their vision was, it's a house under $500,000 in Miami, which is, hard to find. But their vision was, this is our first home. It needs work, but we're getting it with some appreciation. I think I had appraised for like $490. And they had that vision. They had that vision of like, it needs work, but I have appreciation. I'm going to put work to it. And then a couple years, I'm going to sell it and I'm going to buy my dream home. So I feel like a lot of my clients have that concept. But of course, I get, I've also had my clients that want turnkey. But I feel like the majority of the clients that I've had that want to buy their properties like for residential purposes, I've been lucky enough that they're willing to, like, it doesn't have to be turnkey, and they have that vision of.
Well, maybe they have the same, we often track like kind.
Correct. That's what I was trying to. Yes. Like-minded people, maybe I attract them, and then they see that. And I'm also selling it to them. When I have had clients, especially the younger ones, that they want to buy their first property, I'm putting it in their mind. Like, I'm always like, guys, well, maybe this, okay, you can
This is your first stone. This is your first step.
And instead of just buying I have my first house, my house. No, like, this will be your first house. And then from there you could, so I'm always telling my clients, I'm always putting that in their head.
Yeah. And you come with great credibility in that way. All right, let's jump over for the agents who might be listening. Okay. If I go back, you're doing some flips, you get your real estate license, but you got to hang it somewhere. Now, maybe at that time you weren't really concerned about, were you looking for a brokerage that would offer you were just doing your flips and you just need to hang your.
I just needed my license so that I could save money on commissions when I would buy my flips and I would sell them.
Right.
That was the main purpose of me getting my license. When I got my license, I knew exactly who to go with, which is George and RESF, because my best friend.
So you've been with George your whole time?
The whole entire time.
I didn't realize. Okay, because I thought there was a different name under there when I saw your LinkedIn. You've been with George the whole time?
From day one, I've been with him. And my best friend's dad worked with him. That's how I was introduced to him. And I saw his work ethic, and I saw how hard he worked for his agents, and I'm like, okay, I'm not in this to become a real estate agent, but if I ever want to learn anything, I know I'm going to learn it from him. So I signed up with him.
Now you've been there, has it been 12 years or something?
13
years. You already saw positive things from him. Your friend's father brought you over there. You're like, whoa, George, he has all these qualities I like. Now think about that new agent who doesn't have all, you graduated up. I wouldn't say graduated up, but you came through a process of knowing real estate. You're doing your own flips. You kind of had your own thing going on. You weren't really like, hey, I'm going to become a real estate agent. I need to make money, finding new business.
Right.
But now you've been there 13 years, a new agent looking for a brokerage. What were some of the qualities that you saw in George that anybody wants to do real estate in Miami should consider RESF because of these qualities that George has in what he brings?
He has this belief in people, which it's really beautiful because like he sees whatever you don't see, so he'll look at you and be like, why aren't you on the phone? Like, why aren't you filming? Why aren't you doing this? And like, he really, but it's like a good pressure, and he really makes you believe in yourself, and he educates you and he makes you feel very comfortable, and he doesn't make you feel intimidated. Like, I can't ask him this question. I could text George at any point, any time of the day, and he replies to me right away with an answer. So that's something that I think it's really hard to find. There's all these big brokerages out there, but you can't just pick up the phone and call your broker, So I think that's
Yeah.
a really big plus for RESF. And then the fact that he's already gone, from before 13 years ago, he's been talking about video and he's been talking about technology and this is where we're going. So he has that vision. And I appreciate that because he brought it to my attention and to so many other people, our agents'
Right.
attention, And because of that, a lot of us are successful. So I like the fact that he believes in his agents and he has his big belief in us and he's always pushing us. And that's really, I think, hard to find nowadays. And
Yeah.
I think that's not something that you're going to find a lot, with all these other brokerages.
So the topic, if any of my regular listeners, they know I bring this up all the time, is the importance of, it's not necessarily always the broker, but the broker typically is, in most offices, is the leader, sets the tone, sets the culture, etc.
Right.
The importance of that broker in their success is always staying out in front of the agents. You were saying, George, he's always out there out front. He's always teaching, mentoring,
Right.
in basically leading, as you would expect a leader to do. Thinking today what you know about the business, and you've got someone who is thinking about getting into real estate, maybe taking the course right now, maybe just got their license,
Yes.
and they're going out and talking to some of these brokers. What are some ways, because obviously they're not going to know that about George.
Right.
You know that because you've been with him for 13 years, and you had somebody on the inside already giving
Right.
you some information.
Right.
How can they find out what you know already? What advice would you give a girlfriend, say they wanted to start here in Jacksonville, George is not here? How would they find a broker or try to find someone like that?
You need to interview with people. You need to go and interview with people, talk to other agents and see how they like it. When you meet another agent, hey, does your broker sit with you? Does he teach you? Do you have trainings? Does he teach you how to cold call? Does he teach you how to talk to people? Does he teach you how to sell? That's really important. A lot of these brokerages are just like, hey, sign up with me and that's it. There's nothing left.
Right.
So I would definitely tell them, ask other agents. That's number one. And then interview with people. See if you and this broker, meet and you feel that connection. As soon as I met George, it was like nothing. It was like
Right.
we met, it was like an old friend of mine. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This works. It was great.
Yeah.
But maybe it won't be like that when you interview with a couple other ones or they have these expectations of you or whatnot. So I think that would be very important. Interview with as many people as you can and ask the right questions. And those questions involve, how can you help me? That's a broker's job. How can you help me grow and be successful?
Because you are your own business.
Right.
You're totally self-employed and you're entering into a business. You may have an idea how it works, but you don't know how it works.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
and that course, like I tell everyone, every time I tell people, get your license, they're like, oh, that course is so hard. I'm like, cheat through the course. Who cares about the course? Because what they're telling you in the course has nothing to do with real life.
It just tells you how to renew your license.
Right. So who cares about the course? Don't pay attention and then just focus. You're going to have to put your feet on the ground and that's how you're really going to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I think it can make or break a new agent. I think a lot of people, as we know, we have over 80% fallout.
Yeah.
They don't even renew. You got 2 years and they don't renew. And that's when the stat comes up.
Yep.
Hey, they didn't renew. We have all this fallout, where many of them might have fallen out in the first 2 or 3 months.
Right.
If they didn't match up. Because would you agree? Every broker does their business a little differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, ultimately, it's the agent. The reason for the fallout, I think it's, like you said, the leader is very important, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say you got the leader, even people with the right leader, they fail. And why do you fail? Because you need to have, I lacked the vision too. I didn't know that, 13 years ago that I was going to be doing this 13 years later, but I knew that I needed to hone, you have to be consistent, So if you're not consistent with your business, everything's just going to fall through the cracks, So these new agents, they want their phones to ring. Your phone is not going to ring and someone's not going to call you and tell you, hey, I want to buy a house. That's not going to happen. You got to go out there and you got to work. You got to hustle. You got to introduce yourself. You got to tell everyone what you do. You got to learn. It's just so many things,
The broker's going to tell you or can give you some guidance.
Yes, but you have to do it ultimately.
Yeah, and then would you agree? You probably want to find a successful agent in there that's
Right.
actually doing it, because not all
Shadow
brokers are actually producing.
Right.
So, which I think is even more difficult. I heard this broker, well, I don't compete with you, but there's also the other side, is that if you're not producing as a broker, you may or may not be up to speed of what's going on
Correct.
either.
Correct.
So
Correct.
you want to check that out as well.
Correct.
I have this book, Grit. I don't know if you've ever read this.
Oh, yeah. That's on my read list.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
I am dying to read it.
I did listen to it, but then I wanted to have a hard copy
Yeah.
on my desk. I think every real estate agent has a level of
Absolutely.
grit. Yeah. And if you've listened, it sounds like you listened to my show. So I call it the LLC.
Okay.
You got to love what you do.
Yep.
You got to be willing. I think, I call the second one laugh. Love, laugh. Laughing, because there's times where I imagine you have had times where a situation might have been a bad flip, might have been just a really bad client, where you're like, oh my God, am I even doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? I think every real estate agent has that moment.
Absolutely.
At least 99% of them do. And then obviously, what are you doing consistently in your business? That's my LLC. So tell us why you love real estate.
I love real estate for many reasons, but number one, for myself, it's been the way for me to attain financial freedom, something that I never had an example of growing up, and I always dreamed about. I come from a really hardworking family, but like I said, they're immigrants, so it was really challenging for us to grow up, and there was always like a lack of money, and so real estate has afforded me a lifestyle that I've always dreamed of, you know? So that's one of the reasons I love real estate. And as an agent, I love real estate because I genuinely love, like, when I see someone, especially when it comes to an investment, that I get them a good investment, and that day that they're like, holy crap, like this happened, it's like the most magical time of my life. It's like, wow, like I did this for this person, because I know what it is for me. Like, like I said, I love it because it's granted me this financial freedom. So when I get to see that in someone else, that they made all this money that they never thought they could do, it's so rewarding. And that's like the number one. And then I also love my first time home buyers. Like that's like one of my favorite, like helping them out. And this is my dream home. And it's like, oh, I love that part too.
Yeah, they're generally the most appreciative, especially
Absolutely.
From a lending side, working, if they're tight on the income or tight on their assets, and you're just able to get the deal done for them.
And they're so
they
grateful.
show the most appreciation.
Yeah, I actually got my first gift from a client of mine that was a first-time home buyer. So I've only gotten several gifts, because usually I'm the one giving gifts, right?
Right.
And all the gifts that I've received has been my first-time home buyers. They're so grateful, and I love them.
Yeah.
So I love working with them.
All right. So the laughter part is a little different. It's something that I came up with for my own personal life, and just setbacks, stupid things we do sets us in the wrong direction. But now, today, having the experience, I look back and I laugh at those. So when a curveball comes at me today, I might set back, but then I'm able to laugh about it and say, hey, I overcame that 10 years ago. I can overcome this. Tell us about a situation where, maybe it was a bad deal, like I said, or a bad flip that really, kind of punched you in the gut.
Yeah.
But today you look back and you tell people at a cocktail party and laugh about it.
Oh, wow. Okay. The first one that comes to mind is the first time we started investing in Montgomery. We bought a 20-unit building there. And we were so excited because we were like, okay, this is it. This is it for us. We were just going to buy this big building.
20 units.
20 units. We're going to set it up, and that's it. Like, this is going to be our cash flowing business. We're going to be chilling. It's going to be great. So we get into there, and oh my gosh, it was so challenging. It was like the hardest 10 months of our lives because it was so far away. We're very hands-on. So my husband was away all the time. He was always in Montgomery because we quickly noticed that we were being taken advantage of by the contractors. So it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare of 20 units. It was a lot of work. It was in a really bad area. Like there's drugs, shootings. It was very challenging. A little quick story about that. One of the contractors that we had hired, we had told them, look, the only way we're going to pay you is every time you do a unit, for instance, you have to send a whole video of you walking into the unit, showing us everything you did, and then we'll go ahead and send you the money. So the guy would do this. He did this to like 3 or 4 units before we didn't. My husband wasn't going every week like he was after that. But so he does that. He sends us a video. We send them the money. Then my husband ends up showing up to go see the building, and nothing is done. Everything is gutted. So this guy was doing these videos. He was doing the work. But then he would take out the laminate flooring or doing the cabinets, and he would put it to the next one. And then he took all his stuff. So in the end, he would just put it in, take a video, and take it out. So when we got there, everything was still gutted.
He was doing double the work.
Double the work.
And you were paying for the materials. Like, why in the...
And, well, in the end, he kept everything. He kept he left. When we got there, obviously, we called him out, and the guy answered the phone, and we're like, hey, we're here. And he was like, oh, he took crap, and then after that he never talked to us again. He never answered the phone. But we lost a lot of money. That was just one contractor, and then that's it. We were like, okay, this is not happening to us again. So my husband basically lived out there. We got the whole building rented out, and then we ended up selling it. We made a lot of money selling it. It was a great investment, but it was a very challenging. I would not do that.
It was wrenching you to the point of like, do we even want to even do this anymore?
My gosh. I mean, we stayed in Montgomery because of the opportunity that we saw that while we were there. We learned a lot about the demands and everything there in the market. But that building was a very, very challenging experience for us. But now I look back and I laugh. So every time we have any little hiccup, I'm like, we got this.
Montgomery.
We got this. We got this. Yeah.
Well, especially when someone, to me, the heart-wrenching part of that is when you have someone who you put some sort of level of trust in. Hey, we're gonna pay you money. And then they screw you basically on that, and to me that I think that devastates people more than finding a problem they didn't know was there.
Correct, absolutely, absolutely, because it's the disappointment of not only that you screwed me over, like now I have to pay for everything again, but it's that disheartening of the disappointment of bad human.
Exactly.
Why would you do this? So it was very challenging, but we learned a lot. Now we know what to ask, what not to ask, when they're done with work, we know exactly what we need in order to get them paid.
Just another example why someone who wants to get into flipping, multi-level here, you've done it, to find a mentor like you to walk you through 4 or 5 or 10, whatever it takes. But to go in there yourself, that might be your last flip because a bad experience. Because that could have set, luckily you guys had the funds and able to overcome that. Yeah. If you're going in there on shoestrings, that could have just put you out.
Oh, yeah.
And you could have took a loss, just try to dump the building to someone else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
What are you doing today consistently in your business? Do you feel moves the needle, gets you new clients, keeps the phone ringing? What are you doing that you think is consistently just moving your business forward?
Cold calling. I've never stopped.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of the cold calling that I've done, to be 100% honest, is for myself, for when I'm looking for investment properties for myself. I'm constantly cold calling. But within that, then I get other clients and I meet, but I want to sell my house and it's not a good investment opportunity. Or for me, anytime I get a client of mine, hey, I want to shop for a house, or they call me, hey, Gelkys, I want this, and I want to make an investment and I want this return on my money. Cold calling. Like, that's my homework. You want this? Okay, my job is to find you that. How am I going to find you that? Either go door knocking or cold calling. But that's something that I'm very consistent with, and it's proven to work.
So you almost put yourself in, because you were doing it yourself. You were the buyer.
Correct.
You're doing it now for other people, but you put yourself still in the mindset that you are the buyer.
Right.
So that's why you're cold calling. So when you're having the conversation, you're not having it as a real estate agent, Gelkys. You're having it as I want to buy your home. Well, it's not really me. It's my client, but
and then initially I go in it when I'm even shopping for a client. I forget about my client. I only think about what they're requesting of me. Like, for instance, I want this kind of return and I'm not willing to pay this or that more. So I go in with that criteria, but I'm shopping for myself. So for me, that's the way I work. I'm not going to tell a client of mine to buy something that I don't believe in, that I wouldn't buy it for myself. So I'm going in it like for myself. I'm not thinking about as a sale or I have to get this guy this. No, I'm like, listen, I have these parameters. How can I find this?
Yeah.
That's my job. It's to find you a deal.
Well, I think just having that mindset that you have, that you are the buyer. So when you're having the conversation, you're not, salesy is not really the word, but you're able to talk to the potential seller of this property from a standpoint that you want to buy it. Correct. So you're having just a natural conversation, and someone's willing to have a conversation with someone who's willing to buy something from you, not just trying to be the representative someone wants to buy.
Absolutely.
And that's interesting. So walk us through your mindset. You have a investor that, hey, I'm looking, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people want to find multi-units. It's like the thing, but it's not always there. But maybe you can give us an example of someone you had recently. And then what do you do after you have what they want and their return, what do you do next? What's your get to the cold calling?
What do you mean? I get the
what investigation you do to start finding like, okay, they want this kind of house, so I need to look in this area.
Okay.
And then of course they want a return on investment,
Right.
so you got to look for.
Right. So what I do is I get the parameter, whatever they're shopping for, and then let's just say it's in a specific area. So I go in that specific area. And if it's not in a specific area, then I see what area would this make sense for this man or this woman to make this money or this return. So I kind of hone down on an area, and then I just start calling through iMaps. I just start going one by one these properties, and then I use the software Forewarn to get people's information, to get their numbers, and I just call homeowner by homeowner. Depending on, whatever asset class that I'm looking for, a multifamily, a single family, commercial, and I just start calling that asset class, and I just start talking to
Are you getting
owners.
the information? Because I know there's places where you can get the information like, hey, what's their size? Do they have equity in their house now? Right?
Yeah. Well, that Forewarn app has been very good because it actually tells you everything about the person. So it'll tell you if they own properties, and if they do own properties, it tells you what they owe on their mortgage. So it tells you a lot of information. So I use that app a lot, and then I use iMaps, which also gives you a lot of information.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then you're just
So when
calling
I'm
them
doing
and
it, I'm calling. I'm not doing research before I call.
Right.
I'm just calling. Because for me, it's, first of all, I see it as like two-sided. Cold calling, because you never know. Maybe I'm not going to get this guy exactly what he's looking for, but in the interim I might find someone that's looking to sell or looking to buy or telling me, oh, I want to buy an investment property or whatnot. So it's I see it from, I'm not doing a cold calling because I need to find this guy a property. I'm cold calling because I need to find this guy a property, but in the interim something else could happen. So I'm just calling. When I'm calling the person, then I'll look up their stuff. Like, if I get them on the phone, I'll be like, hey, by the way, I see that you have this much equity and you have this, and are you interested? And I'll start talking to them. But I'm not doing all this research and then dialing the number. Oh, no.
Well, you're doing enough research to find
parameter, right?
The type of, whether it's a duplex, there's only certain areas that are going to be there. I think, well, Miami probably has a lot more of the multifamily than we do here in Jacksonville. But I think we need to get back to, with the affordable housing issues that we have in a lot of places, we need to get back to building duplexes and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because they're great investments, but there's also, we like to build these houses. And of course, some of these houses you can reach out and touch your neighbor too.
Oh, yeah. Too much. Yeah.
Yeah. Not much of a yard, but from that standpoint, but we definitely need to get back to that probably on a side subject. All right.
Yeah.
Give us a little touch, because you're investing nationwide. You've gone out to Alabama. You've gone over to Fort Myers. You're up here helping clients. What made you comfortable doing that? Because I think a lot of agents who might be listening, like, oh, I know, Northeast Florida here, and I can go and drive over there and touch it, but I can't drive to Montgomery, Alabama this afternoon and go and touch that house.
Right.
What gave you the confidence to start to branch out, or just I guess there was enough intrigue to get out there?
The internet. Why do you need to be there? There's Google Maps. There's call the neighbor. I've done that. I got a house in Montgomery, and that I'm not going to go to Montgomery every time I have a house. I buy a house over there. I have 30 right now. I call the neighbors. I get their numbers. I'm like, hey, I'm buying this house. How's this neighborhood? Has there been any crime? I look up crime stats. As long as you know the formula, you could go anywhere. You just need to learn the formula. That's it. And then how do you learn the market? You go and you use the internet and you learn the market, and you call people and you ask questions. So just need to learn the formula. That's it.
How are you judging? Because you said you own quite a bit of property in Montgomery. Oh, I guess obviously one success has got you motivated to the next one, type of thing. Let's track of thought. The question, I was really going deep on that one. Whether you're going to flip it or hold it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, currently, right now, my mentality, it has nothing to do with flips, but I think it's that the part of me that, that I love the art of the sale, that sometimes I'm like, oh, I could flip this right now and start over. So currently what I'm kind of going through right now is, my idea is building this portfolio, and I want to build this portfolio as big as possible. Right now I'm at 30 in Montgomery, and I have a few in Fort Myers and in Tampa. So I'm trying to build it as much as possible. Then I struggle with, for instance, I picked up everything in Montgomery so cheap and such a great price that I could flip it right now and then start over. So I'm in that interim right now, like, I could flip this. I can make all this money and then just start over. I could buy the houses again cheap and set it up with Section 8 and then set it to investors turnkey, and I could keep doing this. So I struggle with that big time because I call it, my husband's like, just relax, like just enjoy it, like just sit here.
Take the cash flow for a little while.
Cash flow. And I'm like, no, we could flip it. We can make more money. And come on, you know? So I'm struggling with that. But the idea right now is just to hold. To be honest.
Now, do you have a management company out there that you're using?
Us.
You're managing it completely from here. Wow.
Yes. We created a team. So like I said, with that building, we spent a lot of time in Montgomery. So we got to know a lot of people. We've made a lot of connections over there. So we have our team of contractors. We have our team that shows properties for us. We have our team that that helps us boots on the ground. And then from here, I list the properties for rental. I do all the paperwork for Section 8. I do all that stuff from here.
Wow. Well, that's entrepreneurialism. I mean, you have the faith in it. You've fallen, but you've gotten back up. Yep. You made the connections out there. They have 30 homes sitting out there, and I'm sure every month there's someone moving in, someone moving out. There's toilet issues. There's this, that, or the other thing issues, and you're managing it.
Yeah.
From the fact that you're managing it from here is just amazing. Because the ironic thing is, I just had my last show, which occasionally I have a non-real estate agent come in. I was a property manager.
Okay.
And we were talking about the horrors of why some people should hire a property manager just to get themselves someone between them and the renter, so to speak, from a liability standpoint. That type of thing, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know how time you have to be here.
I have my husband.
Yeah.
My husband helps a lot.
You got bookkeeping you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
The receipts coming in, the bills coming in. And
we've set, my husband and I are such a great team. Like, he handles the majority of the property management and I handle more acquisition. So I'm constantly looking for new properties, meeting wholesalers and trying to get more properties, and now bringing in investors that want to do the same thing as me. So I'm doing more of that side, and he handles more the everyday dealing with the contractors, the property management, and renting out the places.
Well, the bookkeeping alone is a job with that many units,
let
alone the others you have around. Let's kind of finish up these last few minutes. And you've been in the business. You have a really a 30,000 foot level. There's probably some things in real estate you haven't done, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a manufactured home park or anything like that, like Bigger Pockets. That's what he does.
Tapping into developing though.
Yeah,
that's my next little I'm interested in.
Well, again, I really think we need to go back to, I think it was the 80s in Florida, where they were building these communities where there were manufactured homes on golf courses and so forth. These tight little affordable housing type situations, and we've gotten away from it. We're building these houses because there's such a demand. Yeah. There's enough demand for someone here in Northeast Florida, and St. Johns County being one of the most desirable areas, which now I'm sure you've probably seen Nassau County, which is above Jacksonville, is becoming a hot market all the way up to the Georgia line. They're able to sell the 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 or more, home.
Right.
So they're not willing to go in and build a manufactured home park, standardized or nice with amenities. Because when my parents were looking to move down here, and when I was late 80s, early 90s, they were looking at these manufactured home parks. So their friends had places, and they were like, we're going to go down to Naples. We're just going to get a manufactured home park, and that was the vision. Right. I think we've gotten away from that.
We have.
Yeah. So I think people neglect the fact that some of these manufactured homes are built better than your stick-built homes.
And they're much more affordable, like you said, helping those that need it. Like, I think we're onto something, and you're right.
Yeah.
It's diminishing. You don't see that anymore.
Even to these areas, which I don't know if you know. So if you drive south on 95, you get to the World Golf Village.
Okay.
And they're basically built. There's going to be an expressway. It's going to come in just north of that exit.
Okay.
So St. Johns County is one of the most desirable, top schools, etc. The expressway is going to go across that Shands Bridge, which goes into Green Cove. So someone's going to be able to come up 95, get on that expressway, and go all the way around Jacksonville without ever going into Jacksonville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that whole area out there on the other side of the river, the St. Johns River, is now going to have a freeway through it. So now people can come to work to Jacksonville, whatever. They can get in a more reasonable commute. So obviously, the developers, they're already out buying that land. That bridge is not supposed to be expanded or finished expanding. It's just a 2-lane road, bridge right now. It's going to be expanded into this expressway by 2030, which is going to open, this huge swath of land. Well, I mean, if you go out there and buy big enough, put 10 manufactured homes on it, you're going to rent those out.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to sit there. In 10 years, someone's going to want to buy that lot of land. Yeah, if not just take over. Yeah. So I think there's huge opportunities and things like that.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you've ever been to Green Cove. You ever been to Green Cove Springs?
No, but I've heard.
It's a little treasure of Florida.
I heard it's like a beautiful little town, like a little area. It's like a little, that's how I feel about Miami Springs too. It's like a little treasure.
Well, it goes back in time.
Yeah.
And I had some friends that live there. He's actually the city attorney. And he was telling, I didn't realize this, he's telling a little history. Green Cove Springs they called it Little Detroit because what was happening is that after World War II, the Navy had a shipyard there and so forth. And the soldiers were coming back and they were dropping them off. Well, how'd they get home? They went and bought cars. So basically, they're buying up the cars to drive home.
Got it.
Yes. So they called it Little Detroit.
Wow.
And then before the railroad, Flagler put in the railroad, that was a stop on the steamboat going down the St. Johns River as far as they could go.
Nice.
So it's had its heyday a couple of times. It's due to have another heyday here soon. But yeah, if you actually go to downtown Green Cove Springs, there is a spring right there. They actually have a city pool attached to it. The spring pours into the pool and then out into the river.
So that's like one of the most desirable areas here.
It's a little treasure of Northeast Florida. Yeah. There's a little bit of history there.
I'm going to have to look into it.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been intrigued about living here in Jacksonville.
You possibly still can find duplexes over there because it's that old.
Wow.
And definitely fixer-uppers because I think the other city that's going to be on the map that's kind of off everyone's radar is Palatka, which is just the next city down the river. So if you look on the St. John's, you will see what's considered Orange Park, Green Cove Springs, and then Palatka is further down. Palatka will be some of the best bass fishing in the area there. Welaka, people know all those in. But that's the area where you're able to go buy some acreage. If you could find in the old town a duplex or whatever, that kind of thing, or in some of these older homes that just, can be touched up because people still like that nostalgia.
Yeah.
And of course, those homes are nice. They're close to the river, walk in the town, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, I think I found my new little market to research.
Yeah, exactly. Some treasures in there.
Yeah.
A lot of old manufactured homes in there too, because some of these retirees went and wanted to just hide, and that's where they could hide. Well, they're not going to be hiding much longer because when that expressway comes in, that's not going to be that far away.
Yep.
So, and then you can get out the 95 within a few minutes. As Route 207 goes right into Palatka. Anyway, just some tips for probably all the agents now are looking at Palatka, which they should already know. If you're in Northeast Florida, you should already know that stuff. Yeah. Let's finish up with just some real estate agent tips. Okay. We talked a little bit about new agents. All right. New agents found their brokerage, they move in. What right now with today's current market are whether they're in Miami or they are here, what should they be doing?
Cold calling. That's what I want to say. Cold calling about everything, because I just feel like when you're on the phone, even if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't have any buyers, if you don't have any sellers, like nothing, you're just cold calling. You're just talking to people. You're just putting yourself out there. Yes, a lot of people are going to hang up on you, but there's a lot of people that are going to take your call, and you get to practice selling or talking to them, every single call. And I think
Play me a conversation.
You
totally call someone. How do you break the ice? What's some of the things you're gonna?
I usually just try to start off something like, "Hi Tracy, how are you doing?" And you don't know who I am, so you're gonna, instead of saying, "Hi, may I please speak to Tracy?" No, "Hi Tracy, how are you doing?" Oh, good. Who's this? Oh, I'm Gelkys. I'm a local agent here in Miami Springs, and I'm just reaching out to all my neighbors just to offer them my service. This is something general, just to be general. I'm not looking for anything. Just to offer them my services. I've been doing this for a really long time. I would love to sit and meet with you. Something like that. This is just like one of my generalized one, like just to meet people over the phone. Like instead of
follow Ricky Caruth?
No, I don't.
He has that same mindset like you're just talking about. He talks about, he's from Alabama actually.
Oh, okay.
I think he's with the EXP now, but he was with Remax.
Okay.
He sold over 100 units 2 years in a row. But his whole thing was that whole mindset that you're talking. Just call people and start talking about.
Yes.
You're not trying to sell them.
No,
You're just
offer
like,
your services. What do I do? Hey, listen, and what do you have going on? And I would like just asking,
Yeah.
be interested. Be interested.
and then he said, basically he ended the call as like, hey, by the way, if you know somebody, or hey, if you were looking to buy
Always.
sell, will you call me?
Absolutely.
Give me a shot. And that's how he ended the conversation.
And you follow up. If that person took the time to talk to you more than 2 minutes, that to me, that's
That's a
need.
win.
And I'm gonna mark them in, and I'm gonna give them another call in a couple days or in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Ricky Caruth, we had him. He came in town back in October and spoke, and that's how. And he actually has his own podcast, and you see him on Instagram as well.
Okay,
but
I'm
he
gonna
has
have to check him
that
out.
same mindset, because obviously one of the biggest fears of people is the cold calling.
Yeah.
But it's that mindset that you have that you're not actually looking for the client.
Right.
You're just trying to make a connection.
If you go into it like, oh my God, I have to make this sale, yeah, you're going to freak out. And then you might get scared of the rejection. But I don't care about the rejection because I'm not going in with a sale. I'm going in with, I want to introduce myself. I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are.
Yeah.
And I want to know if in the end we could work together. Maybe you need my services. Maybe you don't. Maybe I meet a new friend. Who knows? That's just how I go into it versus I need to make this sale. I need to get a listing. I just, casual conversation.
You have a lot of other things going on, and obviously 13 years and so forth. So you probably don't have like, hey, today I need to make so many contacts.
No.
But I have, there's teens out there that are starting these young agents. Like, hey, you need to have so many conversations today.
Yeah.
And do you think a new agent should kind of set that bar
Yeah.
for them? Hey, I need to talk to 5 people
Yes.
today.
Absolutely. I don't do it because I feel like I don't need to anymore. But I feel like when you're starting this
Right.
this new practice, you have to do that. Because if not, you're not holding yourself accountable. You'll make your first call and you hang up and you're like, oh, it's it. I talked to someone, I'm done. No, you have to commit yourself. I'm going to do this with 5. Because once you do it with 5 and then with 10, you're not scared anymore. After
Yeah.
a couple of months, you're not scared and it's easy to pick up the phone and do it. So I don't do it for myself because I have so many things on my plate. So I just make it. Like, I don't care. It's an hour a day, one way or another, and I just make it happen. But I don't,
Yeah.
if I make 10 calls, if I make 1 and I end up talking to someone for an hour, then it is what it is.
Do you think it takes off a lot of stress if they don't actually expect an outcome from the call?
Right.
If you're doing the call and expecting immediate, oh yeah, I am looking to sell. Come on over.
Right. It's disappointing when you hang up and you didn't get that,
Right.
So it's easy to get discouraged. So when you go into it thinking, I'm just here to introduce myself. That's it. Like, I just want to introduce myself and see what comes out of this. You take that pressure off.
And you get their contact information, put them in the CRM, get them on your newsletter or whatever you're doing from that standpoint. That kind of should be your mindset. Let me see if I get 5 new people in my CRM today.
Right. And my main goal is to make connections. You
Yeah.
know, if you see it in that sense, my goal is not to get a sale right now. It's to get a connection because real estate is about relationships and about connections. It doesn't matter who you work for. It's about you. Right.
Yep.
So if I make this connection with this person today and maybe I follow up with them next month and I make, I deepen the connection, by the time in a year from now when they need to sell, they're going to think about me. They're going to call me like, hey, that girl Gelkys, she was so nice. And, it wasn't salesy and she didn't want to sell.
Stayed in touch.
Right. And, I showed the interest because I care about people. It's
Right.
not about, I care about listing your house. I care about getting to know you and seeing how we could work together, not only now, but 10 years from now.
Right.
What
is your mindset on your Instagram? Because you do kind of like a life of Gelkys on there. You're whether you're showing home, working out, whatever, you've got a little bit of everything on there.
Yeah.
What is your mindset of that?
My mindset for Instagram is just to show people who I am and about my life, the parts that I'm willing to show, which is what's really important for me, which is real estate, my family and my kids, spending time with them, which is
Cooking.
why...
I see a lot of cooking.
Cooking, yeah. I don't like cooking, but I have to. But yeah, cooking, feeding my family, and working out. I feel like having a healthy balance with all of that, I think it's important, and it's something that I would love to... I love when I get women reaching out to me like, oh, you're inspiring me. I love that. I hope to inspire other women to, live a healthy lifestyle and to go after their dreams. Like, this is something I always dreamed about. So... that's putting myself out there.
I think people have this thing about whether it's YouTube, Instagram, social media in general. They think they go do a few videos and they expect that phone to ring.
Yeah.
And now there's people who tell you they've gotten deals from Instagram, which the only way I could think of is someone you did not know messages you through Instagram and says, hey, I saw your stuff on here. Then you know it came through Instagram. But that person that you may have cold called 3 years ago that's following you on Instagram now is ready to sell.
Right.
You may say, oh, it's because I cold called them 3 years ago, which, yes, you can give credit there, but it's because of Instagram they remembered you.
Right.
Would you agree?
I think so, but I'm also big on follow-ups. So
Yeah.
I don't leave it all up to social media. I've been using my social media to generate more leads, and to be 100% transparent, I've gotten a lot of leads. I've never been one to be in social media. I just got into it like last year. And ever since I started in around September, October, I've had so much business. But it's because I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing all these videos. I'm public, I'm getting all these new people that are like, oh, I've never seen you before, and can you help me? And I'm in a niche, which is helping investors create cash flow. So I've created a lot of business because of that. But for me, follow through and following up with customers and clients is very important. I don't leave it up to Instagram.
But don't you think, I don't want to take away from the importance of what you did. You built up such a following, and then you went in to Instagram. Those people are following you there too.
Right.
That it's keeping you top of mind.
Right.
So it's kind of, we were talking about Joe Rogan pre-show, talking about podcasts and stuff. And Joe Rogan had a following, and then he goes in the podcast and it blows up.
Right.
You had a following, you go into social media, and now you felt it's actually added fuel to your fire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it was something that I was missing, and I'm very happy that I went that route.
You had a fun. All right. This is a challenge that a lot of agents, I think, are having. Well, we know 70-something% didn't even do a deal last year. Okay. But there's agents right now in Northeast Florida. I know their phone is blowing up. They're going on multiple listing calls a week, that sort of thing. Of course, I don't know. Jimmy keeps telling me he's going on 3 listing calls today. He tells me that every other day.
Good.
I don't know if he's got that many listings. Good go, Jimmy. But you got some agents that are really busy, and you got some agents that it's crickets.
Yeah.
They're not getting those calls.
Yeah.
Looking at that, evaluating, what would you recommend that agent who's not getting any calls, who maybe getting pushed out of the business right now?
You need to put yourself out there. You need to stop being afraid of the rejection. Those guys are usually, I know a lot of them, and they're all complaining at home. And, I talk to them, some of them are my friends. Hey, man, how are you doing so good? I haven't closed a deal. And I'm like, do you not see me? It's like I wake up and it's hustle. Like, that's what I do. Right. And that's what you got to do. If you can't just wait around and wait, like I said, wait for your phone to ring. You got to go out there. And I know for certainty, if you go out there, even if you don't go out there and you just make calls all day, you're going to get business. This is the type of business that you got to put in first. So I would say to them, go out there. Your phone's not going to ring by itself. Go out there, put yourself out there and talk to people and just go out there.
I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank
and making
you.
the trip up. I want you next time you're coming up here to give me a call. Maybe we'll do a little follow-up show or whatever for, keep in touch of what you're doing. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't talked about here today?
I can't think of anything right now. I can't.
Well, we've been going about an hour and 20 minutes. So I figure that's usually when I start to, pull the plug on it. But I mean, obviously we could talk about real estate all afternoon, but when next time you're up in Jacksonville, let me know, come in, whatever's going on in the market.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a new flip. Tell us about what happens with your triplex. Is that going to be a little fixer upper or is it ready to go over there?
The intention is to hold it. It's not going to be a fixer-upper.
It's ready to go?
Like some little makeup here and there, but nothing crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us how that's going and what's going on Montgomery. Let's stay in touch. And like I said, every time we come to Jackson, just let us know. We'll get you.
And I'll be on Instagram.
We'll create some content.
Yes. Let's do it. Yes.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. You too, Tracy.
All right.
This may be it for today's episode of Real Estate Excellence, but we both know your pursuit of excellence doesn't stop here. To connect with the best of the best and really take your skills to the next level, join our community by visiting TracyHayesPodcast.com, where you'll meet more like-minded individuals looking to expand their inner circle and their personal experience. That's available at TracyHayesPodcast.com.